Hello, welcome to Life Talk for Thursday, September 14th, 2017. I'm Mark Crutcher.
And I'm Renee Hobbs. I'm glad you are with us today. We're going to have a really exciting show.
Yes, we are. We've got a neat guest here who's been with us before, an old friend of Life Dynamics.
She's not old.
I don't want to say an old friend. Let's say a
Yes.
longtime friend. She'd get me mad at me if I said she's an old friend. But nonetheless, she's been with us a lot of times in the past. Came to our intelligence operations training.
She did.
A few months back.
Yep.
Anyway, she'll be joining us here in a minute from Michigan. There's a situation out here. You know, we keep on talking about what slugs these abortionists are.
And they are.
And every time one of them gets in the news somehow or another, it reinforces my longtime argument that I've made that abortionists are the washouts and the losers of the medical community.
Mm-hmm. There's no other way to describe them.
There isn't. And
Right.
this is the only people that the abortion industry can attract, because no legitimate physician goes to medical school, goes through all the hell that you have to go through to be a licensed physician,
Right.
to end up working at some Planned Parenthood death camp. They don't do that.
No, they don't, except there's an exception, him. And I'm sure Lynn will explain that to us.
Well, he apparently, we don't know that he came out and went right to work, but he went to work in the abortion industry not long after he got out of medical school. My suspicion is he's such a bad doctor he couldn't get a practice going.
Right.
But anyway, joining us from Michigan is Lynn Mills. Hello, Lynn.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Hey,
Hello,
Lynn.
Renee.
Hello.
It is my pleasure to have you on. And again, you're not an old friend. You're a longtime friend. How about that?
I enjoy that. Thank you.
She's a warrior.
She's a warrior. She is that.
Yes, watch out.
It seems like anytime something happens in Michigan, if you peel back the layers of the onion, you'll find Lynn somewhere in there.
That's right. Amen to that, though.
Lynn,
That's
tell us about Mr. or abortionist Michael Arthur Roth. He's in trouble again, but he's been in trouble before. What happened with this guy?
Well, as of yesterday, and it probably happened before yesterday, he had to sign a stipulation order. He lost the MD that follows his name for a year. He's been suspended. Well, so then maybe technically he hasn't lost it yet. He has been suspended for a year, and he's been fined $25,000.
Now, this guy, no doctor makes house calls anymore. Now, you know, when I was a kid, there were still doctors that made house calls. When I was a very young kid, I was kind of a sickly kid up till I was about 5.
Mm-hmm.
And we had doctors come to our house. They don't do that anymore.
Except for one. We have a doctor friend that we talked to, and he still makes house calls, but he's the only one that we know of.
I've never heard of it until this guy.
Uh-huh.
This guy, is this right, Lynn? He does house calls to do abortions. He does abortion house calls. Is that right?
Dangerous house calls.
What it appears to be, he had an accident. He hit a young person who was handicapped. They were crossing the street, and he hit them. Divine providence, whatever you want to call it. This young person, by the way, did survive this accident, and in the back of his trunk, they found 15 children. I'm assuming they were in jars. They are still at the Oakland County morgue with the medical examiner. They will be staying there until the trial is done, and this abortionist will be going on trial right after Thanksgiving in November. I believe it's the first Monday after Thanksgiving. I don't have a calendar in front of me. Please forgive me. 3 counts, and I don't have those counts in front of me.
Okay, he's actually got, it says here 10 counts. 6 counts of identity theft, 3 counts of larceny, and 1 count of possession of illegal drugs.
Okay.
But let's make sure people understand. He's out riding around. He runs over a special needs child.
Thank you, yes.
Okay. In the investigation, they find how many babies?
15.
15 aborted babies in the trunk of his car. Plus they found a bunch of equipment to do abortions at home in people's homes, and drugs.
And drugs, yeah.
That he had stolen
Right.
from his former employer that was also an abortion clinic, who also got in trouble with the law, fined $15,000, no, $4,500, and his medical license was placed on 1-year probation because he knew that Roth was stealing stuff and doing abortions in people's homes, and he didn't say anything about it. Is that?
Well, we don't know what he knew, but
It says the medical license, his medical license placed on 1-year probation for failing to report that he knew Roth was stealing narcotics from his abortion facility.
okay.
So, and this guy Roth has a long history of
Yeah.
reprehensible behaviors.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Sex selection,
That
abortion.
he has gotten caught doing abortions in homes before,
Right.
and his hand was only slapped.
Well, now let me
He had
ask you.
barely a fine.
Let me ask you a question, Lynn. Every time we try to pass legislation like we did here in Texas requiring abortion facilities to meet the same medical standards as outpatient surgical clinics, the pro-aborts go berserk. And one of their standard arguments is that they self-police, that they make sure that they weed out all the bad actors. But this kind of thing comes up on an almost daily basis where we find out things like this, whether it's in Michigan, we've had it here in Texas, we've seen it in Florida, we're seeing it right now in Maryland and New Jersey, California. We're seeing this all over the country.
Yep.
There's no policing. What these people, they have to take who they can get. That's the problem that the abortion lobby has. They have to take the kind of scumbags like this, because if they sit around and wait for legitimate, competent, prestigious physicians, they're never going to get anybody.
That's right, because they don't want to do them. And this man is willing to do, obviously, unscrupulous things to people who I'd love to understand and know who got these abortions in homes, in what kind of conditions, who is going to somebody who is not set up with a proper surgical suite.
Somebody desperate.
Well, or maybe they're being sold this idea. You know, we had a situation, Lynn, a few years ago, you may remember, down in Florida with one of their more notorious abortionists who was doing, I forget what the name was, prestige abortions or supreme abortions or whatever. And he set them up in a little, almost like a high-end apartment spa type thing, and they get their nails done while they get their abortions and all this other.
They drink wine.
They drink wine, and it was an upscale abortion experience. Maybe that's what this guy's doing. It'd be interesting to see what he's charging for these abortions that he does in people's homes versus what he charged for that same abortion at this abortion clinic where he worked.
Well, the Attorney General, the West Bloomfield Hills Police, they know, because when they went into his house and they went into his safe, he had these bundles of money with the women's names on it, and this is my conclusion, that they collated with the aborted babies, and they interviewed each one of what I'm going to say the alleged mothers, and they know who the mothers are of these poor aborted children that were in his trunk. And if they wanted to, they could find out under what circumstances these children were aborted.
But here's the question. I'll ask Renee, and I'll ask you too. Think about it a minute. What is his motivation for doing these abortions in people's houses? Why would he do this? And I'll tell you what I think in a minute, and I'll hear what y'all think. What do you think, Lynn?
I think he loves abortion no matter what. And then I do think that perhaps there is a clientele out there who don't want to be seen, that we are so well organized in this area that we've cut abortion down so far, and that prior to him getting evicted 3 times in 6 months, and his most recent Farmington Hills clinic said, "No abortions, bucko," that he feels that he had no other choice. This is what the paper said in the FOIA that we got from the Attorney General, and that his attorney said that they were in his trunk because he had nowhere else to do them.
Okay, now
what he said.
What's your theory?
So there's several different scenarios that could ride out here.
All right, I want to hear Renee's theory about what she thinks, and I'm going to tell you what the real reason is.
Okay.
Can't wait.
Okay. My theory is that maybe the schedule that these women had didn't meet his work hours criterion, so he didn't mind. And like Glenn said, he loves doing abortions. He doesn't mind doing them at people's houses, or there was an issue with the facility that he was in or owned or whatever the situation
Good
is
theory,
there.
but it's wrong.
Wrong.
Wrong. You're both wrong.
What is it?
Let me tell you what the real reason is.
Why?
I'll guarantee you 1,000%. Whatever money he made from these home abortions was not reported to the IRS.
Oh, it's always money, isn't it?
Let me tell you something. Anytime you look at the abortion industry, you try to figure out what's going on in it.
Yeah.
You know, it's what we've talked about this before. What John Dean, you remember John Dean, don't you, Lynn, from the Watergate hearings?
Watergate?
Yeah, and he said, you want to figure out anything in American politics, follow the paper trail, follow the money.
Yeah.
And what I'm telling you is, I'm betting you that if I was an IRS agent up there, I would launch an investigation into this right now, because whatever money he made from them, I guarantee you there's no medical records,
Right.
there's no financial records, there's no receipts written.
Right.
He shows up at their house, and he knows good and well that they're not going to say anything, as long as he doesn't kill them and they have to wind up in the emergency room, which he could do.
Well, I mean, these babies, though, are at the pathology.
He's taking them to the abortion clinic. The pathology lab doesn't know where they came from.
But they can do DNA.
He admitted that he was taking them in the car. He was taking them back to the abortion clinic to be disposed of.
Right, but they weren't taken to that abortion clinic, though. Weren't they sent off to a
medical
pathologist?
examiner has them
Not
now.
necessarily. If I take them back to that abortion clinic, I can grind them up in the garbage disposal and send them down the sewer.
But that's against the law now in the state of Michigan.
And you think these guys are all big?
I would really hope that the police would have taken those aborted babies and
No, I'm not saying the police. I'm saying all the ones prior to when he got caught.
Okay,
right?
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, those are going to be checked out.
Okay.
But I'm saying he might have done 200 abortions in the last year.
Sure,
In
yeah.
people's houses.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And I'll guarantee you there was no receipt given for the money.
Yeah.
There's no medical record.
Right.
The babies are taken back to the clinic and ground up or sitting down the garbage disposal.
He doesn't write down his mileage.
He doesn't do anything. He puts that money, whatever he charges those women, he puts that money in his pocket, and nobody ever sees a nickel of it. The IRS doesn't get any part of it. And if the IRS is on their toes, and Lynn, you might want to call the IRS Criminal Investigations Division up there in Detroit and bring this up to them, because I will promise you 1,000% the abortions he's done don't show up on any records anywhere.
You know, I was going to say that, Mark.
No, you weren't either.
Well, I can tell you that several years ago, I did send a letter to the IRS, but it was in California, because in the divorce proceedings, his second wife said he was hiding money from the IRS.
There you go.
And I sent the paperwork from the divorce to them, and I sent it anonymously. So I never heard back from them. So now you're telling me to amp it up a little and go talk to the criminal division here locally.
You talk to this. We've got a guy here we use in Texas we put a guy in a federal penitentiary doing this. But you go to a criminal investigations division of the IRS up there.
Okay.
And you say, look, I don't have you any proof. I can't wrap this up with a bow on top of it. But I'm telling you right now, this guy may have done hundreds of abortions in the last few years in people's houses, and if he did, and it's almost certain he did, you're not going to tell me that the first time he goes out and does that, he happens to get in a car wreck.
Correct, and has 15 aborted babies in his car. That's his very first time.
Right. When your kids come to you, Renee, and I'm sure you've caught your kids doing something, and they always say this is the first time they ever did it, right?
Exactly.
Did you buy that?
No, absolutely not.
Because you used that same story when you were that age.
Right.
Right.
Sorry, Keegan.
Right.
Well, and here's the other thing. I don't think his license being suspended is going to stop him.
No. Wait a minute. Why would it?
It won't.
or
He's
any
he's
of them.
got an underground network going right now, right?
Yep.
So, I mean, how do these women know to come to him when they want a home abortion? Do they call the abortion clinic and he says, "Oh, by the way, I can come and do this at your house if you want to"? What I'm telling you is they've got something like the old network they had prior
Jane.
to Roe, that Jane network prior to Roe, and the other thing you can rest 100% assured of. If this were happening in Texas, I would go to my guy there in Fort Worth at the CID, at the IRS, and tell him, I said, you better look at this guy because he's hiding money. I guarantee it. This guy could have hid hundreds of thousands of dollars from the IRS over the last few years very easily. He could have done that in 1 year. But I'm telling you, when I read this, that was the first thing I thought about.
Really?
Yeah.
That's good.
When I heard this story, I'm thinking,
Right.
yeah, this is the way to hide money from the IRS.
Yeah.
There's no record of this, I promise you.
Well, and to leap on from this, the apple does not fall far from the tree. So he has a son that is a practicing abortionist in Florida, right, Lynn?
Right.
Yeah.
Harvey Craig Roth from Boca Raton, and I don't have a map in front of me. I'm sorry, I'm ill-prepared today.
That's okay.
Is that near Miami?
I don't know where Boca Raton is. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Let me tell you something. Florida, like Michigan, like Texas, like California, like a lot of other states, has a long history of really bad actors in the abortion industry. And, I mean, look at Pendergraft down in Florida. This man been convicted several times, should have been in prison. He should be in prison right now. Well, of course, in my view, every abortionist ought to be in prison.
Yeah, that's what James says. He says that putting him in jail for crimes against humanity is the only thing that will stop him. Very
right.
true.
That's right. But anyway, I'm promising you, Lynn, you need to go to that IRS CID guy and just tell him, look, you need to be checking this guy out. You may not have thought about this because I guarantee you what people are thinking is they're handling all the paperwork for these home abortions at the abortion clinic, and it just happened to be going out and doing them there. That's not what's happening. I will promise you that's not what's happening. There is no paperwork. There is no paper trail here. He's going to these people's houses. He's doing these abortions. He's taking the $500, $600, $1,000, whatever it might be. He might be charging them $2,000 if they've got a reason they don't want to show up at the abortion clinic. Lord knows what it could be.
That's right.
So he could be charging whatever, but I promise you every nickel of that money is going to his pocket. There's no taxes being paid on it, and the IRS needs to be looking at that.
RICO may also be apply if others are helping Roth find his victims. This is from Jeffrey.
Yeah.
What do you?
Well, that RICO could. You have to have an underlying illegal act, and this would be the underlying illegal act, and then you have to have a conspiracy to do that. So
To follow through with it.
it could be, but the fact is, the authorities need to be looking beyond just this car wreck where he runs over this poor hapless kid, and the fact that he found a bunch of dead babies in the car. Because if they don't, Lynn, you've seen this before, and I've seen it too. They're going to wind up fining him, $5,000 for illegal disposal of human remains or some nonsense like that. That's all they're going to get him for. They've got to follow the paper trail here and look at the money end of it, because that's the key to this thing. It's the key to almost everything that happens in the abortion industry.
Yeah.
What do you think, Lynn?
I think, because I'm busy tomorrow, that's top of my list on Monday.
Good for you.
Top of my list. Thank you, Mark.
Well, you're welcome.
Like with Capone.
That's right. That was a point I made with you when you were here at the IoT training.
Yes.
Al Capone. Al Capone, if you read his life, was one of the most brutal people in the history of the mob. I mean, some of the things he did were completely inhuman to other people. Some of the things he ordered to have done to people and stuff. And he died of syphilis in prison. But they were never able to get him on any of that stuff. They got him on income tax evasion. That's what Al Capone,
That's what brought him down.
that's what put him in prison, was income tax evasion. They couldn't get him on all this criminal activity. And I don't think they'll get this guy. I think they'll give him a little slap on the wrist fine for improper disposal of human remains, and he'll skate on the deal unless they look at the financial part of it. So somebody needs to be going to them, and I guess that somebody's going to be Lynn. Sounds like it.
Sounds like it.
So-
She's on it.
And she has a long history of doing what she says she'll do, so I don't
Yeah.
have any doubt that it'll happen.
I do follow through.
You do, Lynn, and you got to be real aggressive with these guys. And when they say, look, what evidence do you have of this? Say, I don't have any evidence of it. What I have is a history that this is the way these people are. It is your job. You're paid to gather evidence, not me.
Yeah.
If as a private citizen I'm required to go out and gather all this evidence of this income tax evasion, then we don't need you.
Yeah.
All we need is every
Exactly.
citizen be authorized to gather information, and we don't need the IRS.
Yeah.
So anyway, you're going to have to be a little bit assertive there, but I have no doubt that you can do that, Lynn. I've seen you do it.
Yes.
It sounds just like you.
Watch out.
Look out, girl. All right.
Thanks, Lynn.
Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you.
Thanks for being with us today.
Okay. God bless. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. All right. I think she'll go out there and...
She's going to do what she needs to do.
Now, are you telling me that you really didn't pick up on the financial end of this deal when you read this article?
I did.
Did you? Why didn't you say anything?
Because I wanted to see if you did.
Oh, I was being tested.
Right.
Good try.
Right. I know.
Good try, Renee.
Good job.
No sell, by the way. No, I guess I still got some work to do in your training, because you
It's
should have picked up on that.
Financial.
It's-
Always look at the finances.
Always look at the finances first, because 9 times out of 10, that's where you'll find
Yeah.
your culprit.
Yeah, I need to remember that.
Anyway, you got anything else?
Nope, nothing else.
you're
Just
done?
well, I mean, we've gotten a lot of good comments on my email address today and last night, and I thank you guys for sending those in. And
Some of those we might be using as shows.
some we could be using.
And if
Yes,
we do, you get a free
you'll get your free mug.
Life Dynamics mug, official Life Dynamics mug. It's not just one you'd find.
And they're pretty big too. Like they hold,
They
a
hold a
lot of
bunch.
liquid here.
Right, that's right.
So,
and
anyways,
and then they are official. This is just like the ones we use, right?
this is
That's it.
yes.
All right, that's it. Until next time, remember, Life Dynamics is not here to put up a good fight. We're here to win, because winning is how the killing stops. We'll see you next Tuesday.
See you then.